Tonight, look down at what you're wearing. A shirt, pants, maybe a jacket. You bought it somewhere. Probably didn't think about it for more than a few seconds. But for most of human history, clothing wasn't something you bought. It was something you made, by hand, with tools that would look like garbage to you today. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The first humans to sew clothing didn't have needles. They didn't have thread. They didn't have any of the things we assume are necessary to make fabric hold together. And yet, they made clothes that lasted, clothes that fit, clothes that kept them alive in Ice Age winters that would kill a modern person in hours. So how did they actually do it? The answer is stranger and more ingenious than anything you'd expect. Let's start with what most people get wrong. When you hear prehistoric clothing, you picture a caveman draped in a loose animal skin, maybe tied with a rope, barely holding together. That image is completely wrong. Archaeologists discovered the oldest known sewing tools on Earth, awls made of bone, dating back 60 to 70,000 years, found in South Africa, older than any human migration out of Africa, older than cave paintings, older than almost everything we consider civilization. These weren't crude. They were sharp, shaped, deliberately made to punch through tough hide with control. These people weren't draping skins over their shoulders. They were constructing garments, the same way a tailor does, just with completely different tools.
Here's how it actually worked. First, the hide. When an animal was killed, the skin was removed carefully, not hacked off. Removed, because damage to the hide meant a worse garment. Then came the hardest part, tanning. Raw animal hide doesn't last. Left untreated, it rots, it stiffens, it becomes unwearable in days. Ancient humans solved this problem without chemistry labs, without manufactured chemicals. They used what they had. Brain matter. Every animal, it turns out, has almost exactly enough brain to tan its own hide. This wasn't an accident people stumbled on. This was knowledge passed down for generations. The brain tissue was worked into the hide, broken down, softened. Then the hide was smoked over a fire, which set the chemistry and made it water-resistant. The result was something called brain-tanned buckskin, soft, durable, flexible in freezing temperatures. It worked so well that indigenous communities across the Americas were still using the exact same technique thousands of years later when Europeans arrived. Now comes the part everyone forgets, the sewing itself. An awl is not a needle. It doesn't carry thread. It just punches a hole. So ancient tailors would punch a hole with the awl, then pull a separate lace, made from thin strips of sinew or dried animal tendon, through by hand, hole by hole, strip by strip. Sinew was extraordinary. Stretched thin, it was stronger than almost anything they could make from plants. It shrank slightly as it dried, which pulled seams tighter over time instead of looser. A sinew-sewn garment didn't fall apart with use. It got stronger. Bone needles with actual eyes, holes for thread, appeared around 45,000 to 50,000 years ago. Archaeologists found them in Siberia. And once that technology existed, clothing construction changed completely. Suddenly, you could sew curved seams, tailored fits, layered insulation. This wasn't just fashion. This was survival engineering.
Because here's what was happening outside those shelters. The peak of the last ice age hit around 20,000 years ago. Temperatures in parts of Eurasia were 10 to 15 degrees Celsius colder than today. The landscape was open steppe and permafrost as far as you could see. Wind with nothing to stop it. A human body, unclothed, dies in those conditions in under 2 hours. Researchers studying the burial sites of Ice Age humans in Russia found something remarkable. The bodies were covered in thousands of tiny ivory beads, sewn in patterns onto clothing that had long since decayed. By mapping exactly where the beads fell, they could reconstruct the shape of the garments.
tailored trousers, fitted boots, layered upper garments with hoods, a complete cold weather system that looked, structurally, almost identical to what Arctic communities wear today. These people didn't stumble into the Ice Age underprepared. They engineered their way through it. What drove this? The same thing that always drives human ingenuity. Necessity, time, and a brain that couldn't stop problem solving. A needle with an eye isn't an obvious invention. You have to imagine the thread going through the tool, which means imagining a solution that doesn't exist yet. Cognitive researchers point to moments like this as evidence of what they call behavioral modernity, abstract thinking, planning, innovation that goes beyond the immediate. The needle wasn't just a needle. It was proof that someone sat down, thought about a problem from a completely new angle, and built something that had never existed before. We have entire museums dedicated to the first paintings on cave walls. Nobody puts a bone needle in a museum. They probably should. For 60,000 years, your ancestors looked at a dead animal, a sharp piece of bone, and a strip of dried tendon, and turned it into something that fit a human body, something that kept them alive through winters we can barely imagine surviving with modern gear. Every stitch was knowledge, passed from parent to child, refined over generations, accumulated across tens of thousands of years. We figured out synthetic fibers in a laboratory in the 1930s. They figured out insulated, tailored, weather-resistant clothing in a cave with a bone, and most of us have never heard the story.